Right, good afternoon everybody. This is Grant Kaplan from the Immigration Law Office of Grant Kaplan, coming live to you from Florida, United States. You can call me Grant if you want to, that all depends where you come from. Call me anything actually, as long as it's not derogatory. We're going to be going live and interactive with this broadcast, and in fact we're on already. And what we should be doing is getting some comments from you, some likes from you. As long as it's not the middle finger, I'll take anything else from you guys. I'm going to be looking at my screen from time to time to look at the comments. As I say, very much an interactive session. Today we're going to be talking about the latest developments with immigration. How does this affect your visa? How does this affect your green card? Should you be filing now? Should you be waiting? What are the pitfalls that you should be looking at? And how has the new developments with regard to the midterm elections affected what you guys are doing? So let's take a look at the screen now and let's see how we go over there. I'm looking now for comments and from anything else to see how we go. Let's see. Alright, so the guys are starting to give me some thumbs up, and I'm looking forward to that. And let's get on with what we're doing whilst we wait for people to come in with their comments. Now, the midterm elections was held a couple of days ago, and not surprisingly, the Democratic Party took control of Congress. What does that mean? That means at this stage that although the Senate remains in the hands of the Republican Party, the House now belongs to the Democrats. As you all know, in order to pass any kind of new legislation, both houses have to pass the legislation in order to succeed. So what it does from a positive point of view is it prevents any kind of radical proposed legislation from going through without the usual checks and balances. So what does that mean in practical terms? That means that there's a greater chance, in my opinion, that a new law may be passed at some point, or some new regulations passed, which go through the House and which stand a chance of going through at the Senate as well. It also means that Uncle Donald, the president, has to go through and speak to the Democratic Party in order to get some kind of consensus to go forward. So that is a good thing, and that relates particularly to people such as the DACA applicants, deferred action for the childhood arrivals. It applies to various other aspects of immigration. So from that point of view, it is promising. I'm going to go through each visa category, and I'm going to firstly go through the bad news, not only from what is contained as a result of the new elections, but what has been developing over the last couple of months. And then I'm going to talk about specific visa types, and I look forward also to receiving your comments, and we can go on from there. Let me just have a look and see how we go from here. I'm just looking to see where we are over here, and let's see if we've got a couple of guys already: Rajendra, Simon, Rene, we've got Jason, we've got Pamela, we've got Mohammed. Hi to all of you guys. I'm looking forward to receiving any comments that you've got, and we will proceed from there. Now, please don't hesitate to make comments. If very much an interactive session. If you're watching this afterwards and it's not live, by all means, please send out your comments to us. You can telephone us at the office, of course, anytime. Telephone number +1 561 347 8440, or you can go to US Visas and Green Cards. Make your comments. There's also forms to complete, usvisasandgreencards.com, and we certainly can go from there. You can also email me at my private email address, grant@gkaplanlaw.com. That's grant@gkaplanlaw.com. Our office consists of 3 attorneys, 13 paralegals, all burrowing away diligently to make sure that we get your documentation out on time. We've been doing this for 20 years, and we consider ourselves to be the foremost in our field. So we're very proactive. No charge to telephonically make any kind of inquiries. So please call us, email us. We'll be happy to answer. Doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in the United States or anywhere in the world. We'll be happy to help you. Many of our clients we don't meet, but we certainly can assist as we go along. All right, so there's just come out an article called Deconstructing the Invisible Wall. This is from the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and this contains some of the roadblocks which effectively have been put up by the administration. So there is a number of different things which you need to be aware of. Incidentally, if you want to make any comments, of course you'll see underneath the video there's a likes section and a comment section, and please just click on those, and we can see how we go from there. So I see here Jason is writing about studying online and so on, and some people are saying good morning. Hello to all of you guys, and we'll get to all of those guys as we go along. Again, please participate, and we can certainly get that going. Right, so now the bad news, or the potential bad news. In this memo that I was referring to, there's been an increase in travel bans. There's what is known as extreme vetting now, where people who are coming in are subject to extreme vetting, particularly from the so-called terrorist countries like Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. So if you or anyone you know has that heritage or currently has those passports, of course you'll need to speak to us. There are waivers available for these. We have clients who are from Iran or who have spouses from Iran, Iraq, and these countries. Typically they need waivers to come in. Interviews are not held in those countries, but of course are at consulates in other countries. So there are additional screening protocols by the US. There's domestic immigration screening protocols where there's enhanced screening both at the consulate and when you come into the airport. There's new forms that need to be completed. Everyone who applies for a non-immigrant visa, and indeed an immigrant visa nowadays, has to have an interview first before they come in. So typically that is done at the US consulate in the country in which you are in, and we can certainly talk about that in some more details. Administrative processing, there's increased administrative processing, so expect delays, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, also the interview process for guys in the United States, where previously you did not need to have an interview. For example, let's say you were on an L1 visa or another visa and you are applying for a green card. Typically, previously you would not have to have an interview. Nowadays they're setting up interviews, and in fact we went for the first one successfully, luckily for us and for our client. That went without a hitch, and it's more a verification than anything else, but it adds workload to USCIS, the government, and processing times are becoming longer, interview times are getting longer to sustain, and so that's really what that's all about. Now there is a process that's been implemented to stop or slow down the admission of temporary workers and entrepreneurs in the United States, and typically that requires a number of different things. Incidentally, my man Mr. Kevin here says please click on the video and give us a heart a bunch of times to show us some love, says Kevin. He obviously is a man who's lacking love at this stage and therefore wants to see some hearts, so send us a couple of hearts. All right, let's get back to the slowing down or the stopping of the admission of the temporary skilled workers. For H1 visa people, guys who are coming in to come and work, who've been offered a job, of course there is a process now called Buy American, Hire American that has been adopted by the Immigration Service. So that effectively means that the employer has got an additional hurdle to show that they've at least made attempts to hire American workers through this program, and that principally applies to H1 visa applications. Incidentally, the H1 visa program requires you to apply on April the 1st of next year. We need to do three things in order to get an H1 visa. You need to have your qualifications evaluated by an accredited evaluation agency, which of course we can help you do that, to give you at least the equivalent of a US bachelor's degree. Secondly, you need to be offered a position in that capacity by a prospective US employer. And thirdly, we need to get what is known as the prevailing wage from the Department of Labor. We take all of that information, we file that on April the 1st of next year. So if anyone is in that market, please delay us. Please contact us, not delay us. We've got enough delays already. Contact us without delay, and we'll get that going for you guys. So that's the H1 visa. There was an international entrepreneur visa that was envisaged and was in fact put in place. That has now been dismantled, unfortunately, so we don't need to discuss that, unfortunately, any further. What immigration has done is there's been a mass influx of what was known as request for further evidence. In other words, whether it's a delaying tactic or whether it's genuinely that the USCIS believes that they need more information, there's been a huge increased tendency to get on with those and file those, so that puts additional workloads on the attorneys and on the clients in order to get that going. So I'm reading this latest memo as we're going along, and they're talking back about H1 visas again. We filed quite a number of those in April of this year, and believe it or not, we haven't got final adjudications of any of those yet, which is an absurd position, especially if you're an employer waiting for your workers to come in and start. Not ideal, of course. There are alternative strategies, such as filing directly for a green card through a labor certification process or something like that. Certainly we can discuss those if you contact us. Again, our telephone number +1 561 347 8440, and my direct email address grant@gkaplanlaw.com. So on we go. Those guys who are Canadians and Mexicans, they're restricting the TN visa classification for economists. There's heightened evidentiary requirements for the H1 visas, as we discussed. Previously there were H4 visas which were available in some instances for H1 visa holders. Those have been terminated, so that's a bit of an issue for those people. Those guys who had deferred action, the people that were born in the United States and who came in and previously had what is known as DACA, as you know, they are still waiting. However, with the new elections, that may have some promise, because that may be reignited, and the president and his Republican Party are now forced to tell us, or to negotiate with the Democratic Party and get something going. So I'm relatively confident that something will be happening at that time. Let's have a look at some of the comments. Please don't hesitate to put your comments on here. I see Linda is loving it. Carol says hello, and a number of others. So good. Looking forward to receiving all your comments, and please don't hesitate to address us on those. Those who had temporary protected status. So if you, for example, from those countries, El Salvador, Haiti, Nicaragua, Sudan, Honduras, those guys had TPS or currently have TPS. Those programs they're looking to be terminated or curtailed, so that's not a good thing. Refugee admissions, again, you will no doubt have heard about the caravan heading towards the border, which the president has got troops to go to the border. Everyone, in my opinion, is entitled to a fair hearing. If you've got a legitimate request for asylum, and if you believe you're being harassed, intimidated, of course you're entitled to have what is known as a credible fear interview, and if they find that your fear is credible, then you must be entitled to come and have your hearing and be entitled to live in the United States the same as everybody else. This is a nation of immigrants, of course, and we look forward to receiving those much of the same as many of us are immigrants to this country. And on that note, those guys, please tell us what countries you're from in the comments section, and we can certainly talk about anything specific as far as you guys are concerned. Now, let's talk about, let me just see if there's anything else over here. So, yeah, the news is generally not good in this memo. There's a growing backlog of immigration benefits, increased processing times, increased fees. So the news is not really good. Just one note for those guys who are on student visas or going to be applying for student visas. If you, for example, are in the United States on a tourist visa and you want to become a student, it's possible, once you have admission with the necessary I-20 document, to change your status from a tourist visa or from any other visa into a student visa. But in order to do that, that's taking a longer amount of time, as we've discussed, and you do need to continue filing extensions of your tourist visa. Those are called bridge applications. So if, for example, you're on a tourist visa and that's going to expire, and you file for a student visa, that process might take longer than 3 months, 5 months, or 6 months. In the meantime, your tourist visa, which would have expired, you're required to keep filing extensions for that so that you remain in status, so to speak. And again, we'll help you to do that. So that's one of the other points that we've got. So that's really what this is all about. Now, let's talk briefly now about your own particular visa categories that you may be interested in. I'm just having a look at one of the notes. Patrick wants to know why it's taking so long for F2 visas to be, F1 visas it should be, I'm sure, to be approved. As I've indicated, processing times are increased. The USCIS is increasingly under pressure with increased volumes of applications, and for whatever reason they're just taking longer. There's nothing much we can do about that. And if there are exigent circumstances, as for anything else, or emergent circumstances which require something to be adjudicated urgently, it's certainly possible to do that. I see a number of guys are calling in from South Africa, Jason and various others, Carol and various others, Donovan and so on. Hello, you guys from South Africa. I was there. How's it to you guys? As Kevin says, I was there 2 weeks ago. We had a very successful trip to South Africa, and looking forward to speaking to all of those guys again that we met, and any others, of course. We were also in India, as it happens, a couple of months ago, and also saw quite a number of guys over there. And we might be coming to a country near you. You never know. All right, so let's talk briefly about different visa categories, because one of the questions that we had is that when should I file? How should I file my applications? I'm not ready now. I'll only be ready in a year's time, or whatever it is. The truth is, you should file now, whatever it is that you've got going, whether it might be an L visa, which I'll talk about, whether an E2 visa, whether an EB5 visa, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, and we can proceed from there. Then I'm going to talk briefly about family-based visas. I see there was a question about I-130 petitions, and is processing times going to increase? I think processing times are going to increase generally. I see Natasha is waving. Hello, Natasha. How's it going? Donovan says, how's it, But? How's it there to you? And so let's talk briefly about a couple of the different visa categories. If we talk about EB5 visas, the EB5 visa is a visa which allows you, by investment of $500,000, typically as a passive investment, but could also be an active investment, in a regional center, which is nothing other than an entity which has got permission from the Immigration Service to come in and to invest in the United States. That will allow you, by investment of that, at least to come in, once that's approved, with your family, to come in and get conditional green cards. So that's a great investment, and typically we have many clients doing that, of course, and effectively what you're doing is you're investing with a regional center, and that regional center will take your money and invest it in their particular project. Most of these guys are property based, but they don't need to be. They develop hotels and so on, and typically they'll keep your money for 5 years. So those guys would take your investment together with a lot of other guys' investment, and the idea is that you invest it, and in the meantime, once that's been approved, which might take 12 to 15 months, that makes you eligible to get a conditional green card. Husband, wife, kids under 21. So that's a great opportunity. Now, the potential bad news is that the amount of the investment is going to increase. And there's talk that it might increase on the 7th of December of this year. Maybe not. They might kick for touch, as they say, for 2 or 3 months. But in the meantime, that investment is available, and any of those guys who can invest, or who can borrow the money or be gifted the money to invest, certainly that is an option and an opportunity for you to take. And many of our Chinese and Indian friends do this for their kids. They lend them the money so that the kids who are here on student visas or any other visas can come in and take up the green card and live their life again from there. Now, I see Ilza is asking about the branch of a business in the United States. I'm going to answer you right now as soon as I'm finished talking about the EB5s. So the EB5 is an opportunity if you can beg or borrow, but of course not steal, the 500,000. And no, I don't have it to lend it to you. Kevin maybe has got the money. I don't have that, unfortunately, to lend to you. But if there is a benefactor out there or a family member who can lend it to you, or you can put a mortgage over your property or whatever it might be, certainly that is an option. It's a hassle-free way to get in. You have to show that the money comes from a legitimate source. And once you've done that, and you can prove that you're not a criminal, a prostitute, a drug dealer, which some people may have difficulty with, most don't have difficulty with, then you're in. And it's a question of finding the correct regional center. We work with a number of regional centers. Of course, you can pick any regional center, but we'll be happy, excuse me, to introduce you to those. So that is the EB5 visa. I'm now going to talk about one or two of the other visas. The L1 visa is an intra-company transfer visa, where we would take your entity from whichever country you're from. For example, in South Africa, the requirement is that business needs to be a viable business. Of course, in your country, it needs to be at least 2 years old. You need to have a number of employees. You need to have reasonable turnover. You need to have been employed in that business for at least 1 year in the last 3 years. Once you've done that, and you can show that the foreign business will continue to be viable, we can set up a branch or subsidiary of that business here in the United States for you guys, and get you to come in and set up a branch or subsidiary of the foreign business in the United States. You do not need to be in the same business. You could be in an unrelated business. You could buy a business. You could do a combination of those. But you do need to show that the South African or foreign entity, as the case may be, has at least 51% of the shareholding of the United States. So that would enable you typically to come into the US initially for a period of 1 year. And by the end of the first year, you would need to show that you have set up the branch subsidiary in the United States, that you have done everything you said you're going to be doing, start operating the business, start employing some people, doing everything else that you say you should be doing, and immigration will then give you extensions of that time. Once the business in the United States has been deemed to be viable and no longer reliant on the South African entity or foreign entity any longer, you can certainly file for green cards through that process. So the L1 is a great option to have, because it allows you the flexibility to do all of these things. And there's no specified investment required. You do need to show that you have sufficient money to set up and operate your business, and to come in and to draw a salary and so on. And of course, we'll guide you through this process. It is also possible for you to buy a business and put that into the US entity, and that may certainly expedite the process towards getting your green card. Now, the L1 program in its present format may not be around in a year's time. The regulations as they stand have remained the same, but the interpretation and approval of these has become more difficult. So what used to be 500 pages of submission has now turned into 1,000 pages. And you will have also heard earlier that there's an increased tendency to issue requests for further evidence and to do all these other things. So again, sooner rather than later, guys, if you're going to do this, don't delay it for a year or 2 years. Now is the time to get this started. As it is, processing times are increasing. Realistically, it's going to take 2 or 3 months to put the paperwork together. At this stage, probably 5 to 6 months to get the visa approved, unless they request for further evidence. So realistically, you're looking at 9 or 12 months. They do have an expedited process called premium processing, which is really a 15-day turnaround. Again, we're seeing a trend to issue requests for further evidence much more with this visa classification, and indeed with most. So that effectively it puts you back another 30 or 60 days while you answer the additional questions. But there is no reason, even if you're not planning to come for a year or 2 years, to get the process started now. And that would seem to me to be a common sense approach to take advantage. Once you filed and the regulations become more difficult or change or whatever it might be, doesn't affect you. The same as with the EB5 and any other visa application. Once you filed it, you're okay. Even if they change the law or they change the regulations, you would be so-called grandfathered in. So certainly that is the way to go. So we've talked about the H1 visa, guys. That's the employees. We've talked about EB5s with a potential deadline. We've talked about L1 visas for the business guys. And incidentally, you don't need to be General Electric or or some multinational organization. You can be a small to medium-sized business, providing your business in the foreign country is viable and will be able to sustain itself in the meantime for you to come in and out. Of course, your spouse under the L1 visa also gets work authorization to work wherever they wish. Kids under 21 can come with, and they follow your status. You're in derivative status from there. Now, someone has said, how long does the business need to be around for? I did mention earlier, at least 2 years in operation before we can set up a branch or subsidiary in the United States. But again, a great opportunity to take advantage of that visa process. For those guys that are not South Africans, just a brief note, if you're a European citizen or certain other countries, for example, strangely enough the Congo, certain countries in South America, you may be eligible to get what is known as an E2 visa, which is an investor visa which allows you to invest at least $100,000 in the United States. Certainly if you believe that might be appropriate for you, we can certainly talk about that. So I think we've covered the basics. In essence, in summary, if you have something going, please, let's rather do it now rather than delay. Delay helps nobody. It only becomes more difficult. I've given you some of the reasons why you should do that, and I need your comments. I need you guys to email us. I need you to call us. Again, our telephone number +1 561 347 8440. My private email address, grant@gkaplanlaw.com, or you can simply go to usvisasandgreencards.com, complete the form, and we proceed from there. It's been a pleasure chatting to you guys. Kevin is waving at me. I'm not sure exactly what he's trying to show me, but he's giving thumbs up, thumbs down. Cheers from Boca in Florida, and we look forward to chatting to you guys soon. Nice to see you guys.